Hello, everyone. I am here, but I've got a little glitch with the camera. So let me see about, oh, here we go. There we are. All right. We just had to do a little camera readjustment. Do a little bit more on that. Okay, good. Now we're straight. All righty. Well, thank you all for being here with us tonight on this day 3 of our Pet Pain Relief Summit. I'm so appreciative of all of you sharing your time with us, learning information, and then joining in on the Facebook. Any questions you have there, it's just been a lot of fun. So thank you to all of you. Thank you to Summit's group and all those who have worked so diligently to put the program together and make sure that we're flying and all that. So they're just a wonderful group to work with. I also want to thank our sponsors. So we've got 3 sponsors for our Pet Pain Relief Summit. One is Turmeric Life, and then another one is Yum Wolf, and then our other sponsor is Poly Pets. So we appreciate them and thank them, and take some time to go onto their sites and look at their information and what it is that they're providing and offering. So be supportive of everybody. All right, so on day 3, we had Angela Ardolino, where she was talking about CBD and mushrooms, and there's just so much to learn about that topic to get it in our heads about how it works and the importance of having the quality product. So I do biofrequency testing, so it's measuring energetics in products and the body and putting it all together. And sometimes I have clients send me items that they're using at home, and just thinking about the mushrooms, oftentimes they'll send me samples of their mushroom product, and when I test it, it doesn't read like with a good energetic potential. And confusion on their end is like, well, I thought this is something they really need. Well, it has to be the right formula and the right components of the plant in order for it to be effective in the body. So she talked a little bit about that today, and it was like a reminder to myself is, yeah, that's why sometimes I get things in and they don't read good, is because really it's not got the parts in that product that needs for it to be medicinal and helpful. All righty. And then Judy Morgan talked about PEA, and she's got that product on her site. And in our Pet Parents chat group, I just saw that there was a comment about using it in her dog, and she'd seen more improvements by adding that in than when she was just using one of the chemical compounds that had been prescribed. So that was exciting. And then Dee Blanca, oh my gosh, wasn't that a great presentation, going over all the homeopathic preparations that can be utilized for pain management. Just so much there, ideas and ways to be able to benefit on that avenue. And then Dr. Doug English reviewed with Turmeric Life and the benefits of that plant and how to prep it and utilize it in different ways for inflammation and in those pain scenarios. So it was a really good day, and hopefully you enjoyed it as well. Then for tomorrow, which is going to be our 4th day of our Pet Pain Relief Summit, we've got Katie Woodley. Tomorrow is going to be about pain conditions that come on because of other disease-related issues that the animal, the dog or cat, has. So Katie Woodley is going to talk about ears and the pain associated with ear infections and different holistic ways you can treat that and the whole perspective there. And then Julianne Thorne is sharing with us her expertise in dealing with cats and helping them through painful situations in different ways, using color and stones and letting the cats pick out what they need to help them feel better about life. So that's really interesting for tomorrow. Dr. Barbara Royal, I interviewed her. We had a really fun time, so you'll enjoy that one. And then closing our program tomorrow is Dr. Janet Gordon-Palm. And she has a certification in the fear-free program. So she's going to talk about a little bit about how fright and stressful situations can ramp up the pain. And we also talk about the low-level laser therapy that she uses and just some different ideas and tips that she pulls together in her practice. So that's all going to be a whole lot of fun. That then is going to summarize up what we've got heading for tomorrow. And then after the summit, if you're interested in getting some more information about pain and spending some time with me, we've got the post-summit course. And that will be a whole lot of fun. There's information there that you didn't get in the summit. I'm going to do a program on the harnesses is there. I did up one for nail trimming and how to be prepared and what to do about that. There's one on cat arthritis. And then I also, one on nutrition, the pain perspective, how nutrition is important, what you can do and understanding that. And then also one on cancer. So cancer, pain, inflammation, how you can determine whether or not your animal might be one that would head that direction, what you can do about that. And then some really interesting drugs, herbs, products, therapies for helping with cancer treatment. And if we can get the cancer down, then certainly the pain from the cancer is not going to be there either. All righty. So that kind of brings us around that ship, and we're ready to start with some questions. See if we've got some folks joining in. All right, so here's our first one. All right, I missed a little bit on the lab. On June 1st, he collapsed while eating breakfast. He was unstable, walking and clinging for about 40 minutes. Okay, so you have a Labrador that has some high blood pressure. Blood glucose was very low. Oh, yeah. Well, that's enough to make you pass out. All righty. So, yeah, so blood glucose definitely can be a factor in that. So what you might want to do for him would be, instead of only feeding once or twice a day, feeding 3 times a day, also have little treats in between. And what you don't want to do is use things that are real sugary. So if you're using treats, you got to be careful that there's not high sugar content. But for the glucose, for a snack, instead of it just being like dehydrated proteins, which I usually encourage, you may want to have something that does have a little bit of some kind of a low glycemic carb in there. So either millet or oats or barley, those are low glycemic carbs that are okay for diabetics. So what we want to do is try to get his blood glucose up to an even to where it can fluctuate within a normal range and not have spikes. So there may be something there that's starting. We might want to look at chromium and zinc. Those are both very important for insulin production. So maybe his insulin is too much and that's causing the glucose to be too low. So we may want to look at that. Those would be some other things to consider, especially if this becomes a repetitive situation. All righty. What else have we got? Maybe something about pain? Yeah, here's one. An 8-year-old with a lot of pain related to liver gallbladder. So he gets ultrasounds in that area. Oh, it shows he has pain. Every time at ultrasounds, he has pain in that area. All right, so you're doing, some kind of protectors for gallbladder and liver. All righty. Yeah, they'll talk about surgeries. Some minor, okay, so a little bit of thing on the blood work, not a whole lot, but the blood work would show up more changes if there was like active liver destruction in that. So what we're looking at is some function that needs to be improved. So we want to look at, back to the fats, we want to look at that metabolism. It's because the liver and gallbladder both are responsible. So you want to review the food, and then as far as abdominal pain itself, acupuncture is really good for helping that. You can put the laser across the abdomen. Massage can help. The regular, the list of the different things we've looked at. But what you really want to do is get that liver gallbladder functioning better and regulating the fats better, the function. That's part of what the gallbladder does. So there are some homeopaths for supporting liver and gallbladder. So that would be another way. Dandelion is really good for supporting liver gallbladder function. So that would be another product that you could look at too. And there are some other herbs that are specifically for gallbladder that help with that. Choline is another supplement that the body needs. And that's also very key to gallbladder function and gallbladder. If it's not functioning right, you start getting that sludge in there, then pain can start to happen. So I'd be checking out choline for him. And those are some things that would be a part of a whole nutritional nutrient balancing program. And I know I've said this before, but the way to get to the underlying why for these things really is to have that for tissue mineral analysis test done to find out where the levels of toxic metals are and where all the mineral levels are, because then we can look at sugar metabolism. We can see what's happening with the insulin. We can look at, are there any potentials here for liver issues? Where's the copper? Things like that. All righty, very good. Thanks. All right, so here we have from Nicole. Oh, hi, Nicole. A 4-month-old puppy was vaccinated and then began scratching, biting a few hours after the vaccines. Yeah, that certainly can happen when there is sensitivity. It's still happening. It cries out. Okay. So I would be guessing that when that first happened, you probably did some Benadryl, um, or some other kind of an antihistamine, chlorpheniramine, something like that to help with the initial. There are homeopathic preparations that can help with the hypervaccinosis. So what we want to do is get whatever ramp up that's happening in his little body to have that be calmed down. And not just directly only doing pain things, which that's what this whole program is about. So you're going to get a lot of ideas of what you can do for pain across the board. But we want to do something to help bring down that reaction that's there. So I'd be looking at some homeopathy there. Will Faulkner has a website, it's vitalanimal.com, and he has a lot on there about vaccines and about supporting when this hypervaccinosis state comes in. And then certainly going forward, you're not going to want to just vaccinate this puppy. Titer test is going to be the solution to helping, because each time it's going to get worse and worse. All righty. Next question. For minor signs of pain, can CBD be delayed? Says, I wonder if once it is eventually started, that will have to be given forever regularly, or it can be given with times of breaks. Okay, so the CBD, while in some individuals, you will see a response to it, like even with 1 dose or 2 doses, and others it may take a day or 2, but it shouldn't take weeks for you to see something from the CBD. And if it's taking that long, then I would question whether or not you have the full spectrum product, if the quality of the CBD hemp in the product you're using has what it needs. So it may be that there's another CBD that would work better and be more effective. So I would think about that. Also, CBD doses vary quite a bit from one to another, so you have to figure out what's just the right dose for your particular animal, and it can be used in cats as well as dogs. So that, and then other minor signs of pain. Oh, so does it have to begin forever? No, depends on the condition that you have. If there's some kind of a degenerative condition that the body has, then maybe they do need it more regularly, but it can be given as an as needed thing. So you're going to go for a hike, and so you'll give it before and then after you come back, and maybe for a day or so. So you can have that ramp up, and then while you're out, and then maybe for another day, so they don't go up and down with the pain high and then they dump, and then that kind of thing. So you can use it that way. Yeah, it doesn't have to just be all the time. But the thing about it is, if you're having a lot of breaks, a lot of breakthroughs in that, and the pain problems are coming up every couple of days, then I'd say you need to find something that's going to work more consistently. Very good. Okay, my dog suddenly became paralyzed and cried every time she moved her head or turned her body. Well, then I'd be looking at some chiropractic issues there. Anything that's upper cervical that's very severe, certainly all the nerves behind that are going to be affected. And because the neck, so even upper thoracic subluxations, you turn the head, that's going to affect that. So it's got to be from upper thoracic forward to become a quadriplegic, totally paralyzed, unless it was only in the rear, and then that would be different. All right, so every time she moved her head or turned her body. X-rays and blood work found nothing except mild narrowing of the neck spine with some spondylosis. And spondylosis in itself is not a terrible thing, because usually it's below the vertebra and it's just stabilizing a hypermobile area, because next to that is a hypo, not moving very much area. And so the body's trying to even things out. So radiographically too, for subluxations, it's only 1 to 3 millimeters. So a lot of times on standard radiographs, especially because they have to be, they're laying there, somebody's holding them, positioning them a certain way, you may not catch the subluxations on the radiographs, because again, it's only 1 to 3 millimeters of change in that joint that could affect the spinal cord and the nerves, especially if it's upper cervical. Those are really tough to get laid just right. So I would find a really good chiropractor that's great with cervical adjusting and start with that. And then, like, I don't know if this is just in the rear or if it's front and rear. So that would be one thing to look at. And again, it depends on how serious this is. The MRI certainly would tell you if it's a fibrocartilaginous embolism, the FCE, if something else is going on. I don't know how old she is. If it's usually a tumor that's starting to grow, you see it come on gradually, not just suddenly. So there we're looking usually whether it's a cervical subluxation or if it's the fibrocartilaginous emboli, FCE, where that just blew and all of a sudden caused it. Or you can have like the dachshunds and the dogs with the long backs, where you can get some rear problems too. Also, these things can kind of come on and it can look like it's sudden, but if you have a bigger dog that's always climbing on top of another one, especially if the other one's a little older and this younger one's always body blasting them and jumping on them, sometimes it can look like that it happened suddenly, but maybe it was something coming on and then just one wrong tweak. So the MRI definitely will be beneficial diagnostication in that regard, but it still may not show you if it's cervical subluxations. Alrighty. All right. Oh, nice orange tabby. Does liver disease produce pain? Not always. So you could have a diseased liver, meaning it's breaking down, but it's not enlarged. And you could have liver enzymes that are elevated, but there may not be any pain. If the capsule of the liver, if the liver is swollen, then there's the potential that there could be pain. And sometimes the word discomfort may be more applicable. It may not be like intense pain. Certainly like gallbladder issues will be more painful than what the liver would be. So there could be discomfort, especially with enlarged liver, but just liver disease itself, not necessarily would that cause pain. There are a lot of people that can have liver disease, taking this from people that can have liver disease, and it may affect your digestion, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't say that their liver hurts, but there's problems going on. It may make you feel kind of bad otherwise, just, not yourself. All righty. Wait for the next question to come up. Okay. Oh, I always like talking about this, vitamin C. So dogs can synthesize vitamin C. Cats can synthesize vitamin C. The ones that don't are primates and then guinea pigs, specifically when we're talking about pets. They have to have, guinea pigs have to be provided with the vitamin C because they do not synthesize it in their body. But cats and dogs do. So as long as they have the right food products going through their system, they can pull and manufacture the vitamin C that they need. But somewhere along the line, because humans need vitamin C, there's this whole concept, idea, thought, production, that everything that goes out in immune and many other products, joint products too, have this vitamin C added. And the vitamin C that you see generally is ascorbic acid. And ascorbic acid is just the shell, like the shell of an egg that protects all the good things that are inside of it. Well, that's what vitamin C is to the whole vitamin C complex. The ascorbic acid is just the shell to everything else of value and worth that's inside. So what happens with vitamin C is this is administered when it's not needed. Then this extra vitamin C in the body system, what it's going to do is look for something to match up with. And what it likes then is calcium. So we use vitamin C in an individual where their interstitial fluid level of calcium is super high. And we'll use vitamin C to chelate it and bring it down. But unfortunately, majority of the dogs, and many of the cats too, are extremely low at the interstitial fluid level of calcium and magnesium. And those are the calming minerals. We need calcium and magnesium for the muscles, for the heart, for the joints. This is why there's so many cruciate tears in dogs, because of that and the inflammation level. And you don't really know whether or not your dog or cat needs vitamin C unless you're doing this hair tissue mineral analysis test to find out what's the interstitial fluid level. And the interstitial fluid is like the refrigerator. This is where all the goodies are that's going to nourish and feed those cells and turn on all those processes and make the metabolic pathways go and stop them when they need to. That's everything is in the interstitial fluid. It contains lymphatic, it contains all the hormones, it's all there. And that circulates around the cells, and what's there is what's provided to the body. And if it's not there, like when you need to go to the grocery store because you open the door and there's not much in your refrigerator, and you go, what am I going to eat tonight? I guess I'm going to go out and eat out, or going to have to go to the grocery store. That's what happens there. So in these situations where you're putting in more vitamin C, more vitamin C, more vitamin C, and if you have several products and they all have extra vitamin C in there, now you've got this overload, and it's just sucking calcium out that individual cannot afford to lose. The calcium and magnesium, being calming minerals, are a big part of the anxiety, the fears, the phobias. All of those things are driven by deficiencies in calcium and magnesium, and so is cancer. And petri dishes where cancer cells are grown, in dishes where the calcium and magnesium is lower, 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 that's where the cancer cells grow better. And in the petri dishes where the calcium and magnesium is higher, the cancer cells don't get a start. So this is why you don't want to just do it sporadically. And there are situations where I do prescribe vitamin C as a whole factor. And in those situations, I'm looking at rutin, I'm looking at bioflavonoids, I'm looking at rosehip, those kind of products, because it contains the entire vitamin C complex and not just the ascorbic acid. All right, there you go. That's a bigger story on that one. Thanks for asking. All right, here we have a dog that has intervertebral disc disease. They do acupuncture and homeopathic preps. He's been 2 years now, moving pretty good. Now he's limping on his front leg, even after the treatment. Okay, so the good complement to the aquapuncture, okay, injecting liquids into those points, would be chiropractic. So first off, I'd start with finding out, is there a cervical subluxation that's maybe causing a radiculopathy? I don't know how old the dog is. Maybe there is something else that's happened in the joint now with time where there's, because depending on how he leans, maybe there's one shoulder that's carrying more, or elbow or something like that, and they need to be adjusted, or maybe there's some arthritis developing. So you'd want to get range of motion and to know, like, you have to isolate each specific joint, know whether or not there's something going on in those specific joints. Yeah, there's something more going on because it's beyond what you were doing was working, now it's not. It doesn't mean that's not good. It means there's something else happening. So I would start with the chiropractic. I would also think about the rehab aspect of getting range of motion. And that's going to be part of your diagnostic workup. While the chiropractic is going to make the adjustments and it's going to help with the pain, it's also going to help you evaluate what's going on. So that's part of it. And then getting measurements for the different joints on the front leg. And sometimes the front problems come about because of the rear problem. It'll usually go to the diagonal. So there may also be something in the pelvis on the opposite rear side that's now led to the right front. And I'm guessing because of what he's got going on, maybe, or she, it's a he, the gait pattern is not perfect. There's things you can do for posture, improving muscle tone, and that kind of thing too. Yeah, that'd be my start. Next question. All right. Can we give our dogs and cats bits of oranges to give them the whole of vitamin C and not just ascorbic acid? So you certainly could if they didn't mind eating it. But the question is, do they really need it? Again, you're still trying to give them something that you don't know that they need, and they can synthesize it from the other foods that they eat. They don't have to have the citrus fruits like primates do, humans, monkeys, or the guinea pigs. They don't have to have that in order to be able to synthesize the vitamin C. So they still may not need it. You still need to know, is this something that we want or we don't want? But I've never seen anything that said you can't give it to them. Still, it could be something that's not beneficial. All right, next question. All righty, so that brings us up to what we have in the question box for right now. If anybody else is out there thinking about funneling in a question, jump on, get it typed in, send in the question, and we can roll with that. Let's see. Try to think of something else here that we can talk about for a little while. Trying to keep it on the pain subject. Um, Okay, let's see here. About the years. Okay, I'll just kind of go through the program and maybe add a little bit in. For those who have that chronic otitis, one of the things that works really, really, really good to help take down that terrible inflammation and redness is the low level laser, putting a patch over the ear. This was many moon ago. So back in like say 2005 or something like that, I had a client come in. She drove quite a little distance. She had her granddaughter bring her in with this beagle dog that had the worst cauliflower ears, both of them, bilateral, the worst I'd ever seen. I mean, they were so swollen up. There was no ear canal. This had been going on for so long. And of course, they'd tried everything. It wasn't like they weren't trying. And so I just felt sorry for them. And the woman was elderly and her husband had pretty well given up. And he was like, we've already spent enough money. This isn't going to get any better. But she wouldn't stop trying. And so she had her granddaughter bring her in. And so we started on the dog with this low level laser because it wasn't like you were going to get anything down in there. So I did my chiropractic adjustments because sometimes that can lead to issues, it lead to things, although that wouldn't have been the thing that made us this bad. This was just chronicity. And so I did that, had her do 20 minutes twice a day on each ear with the laser pad. And she would do it in another room or when her husband was out because she didn't want another failure. And it was about 2 weeks into it. I had him do it for a whole month. 2 weeks into it, it was already starting to come down. And he made the comment that he thought, and I don't remember the dog's name now, but that she was starting to hear better. So by the time I see her in a month, I could not believe the change. If I had not seen it myself, I would not have believed that the laser could have made that much difference on these huge chronic cauliflower ears in just 1 month. It was phenomenal. So we were able then to really go and do some other treatments, get the dog's body pH balanced out, do some nutritional things, and was able to actually totally resolve the dog's problem. And then eventually she did tell her husband what she was doing, but because it was a success. And they were all happy. And of course the dog was happy because it felt good now and its ears weren't hurting all the time. So put that in your pocket or order it up if you've got one of those chronic ear dogs. It was amazing. Oh, that's for tomorrow. Sorry, I jumped ahead. So she won't. You won't. It's not in the program for tomorrow. So, at any rate, you're ahead of the game. Let's see here. What else do we talk about? Yeah. So, talking about the turmeric, the same kind of thing as what I was mentioned earlier with the mushrooms and that. The same thing here, that sometimes I think the types of turmeric that is being utilized. So same kind of thing. I do the biofrequency. People will send me product they have. I check it, and it doesn't necessarily read good. And they're going, well, turmeric doesn't hurt anything, does it? And I just use it. And I said, well, it's not reading that it's beneficial. And the very same kind of thing. If it's not the right formulation of the turmeric, if it's not the right part of the plant and all that, you may be, again, doing something and it may not be beneficial. So the moral of the story there is twofold. One is, if you're using a product that your gut tells you it should be good, that the item, like say turmeric, but it's not making a difference, maybe it's the brand. And then the other thing is to find doctors that actually do the kinesiology, that can test those things and find out, yes, this is helpful, or no, it's not, and then help you with the brand that is. And certainly Turmeric Life spends a lot of time over the years. They've got a long track history of making sure it's correct. So that's certainly one that you can trust. All righty, so let's see. We've got another question up here. Okay, so we had a TPLO surgery. All righty. Yes, there's a lot of pain that goes along with that. We are hearing that the need for this can be early neuter. Yes, that's part of it, is that the early spay-neuter programs affect the closure of the growth plates and also affects then the height of the dog. So the dogs will become taller and longer legged than what they were genetically supposed to be. And then that can affect the angulation of the leg, which can lead to more of a constant tension on that ligament. However, that ligament over thousands of years has always been one that had a lot of tension. It's expected of that ligament, the cruciate ligaments, that they're supposed to hold up under stress. So what else is leading to that? All right, so number one, the hormones, early spay neuter. That means anything younger than, so 4 months on down, especially 8 weeks to 3 months, but anything, any age that they do not have some development of the gonads to where there's hormone being produced that the body could benefit from. So that's definitely a part of it. Other part of it is this deal with the very, very low calcium and magnesium and chronic inflammation. So diets create inflammation, the insecticides, pesticides, all the toxins, chemicals in the environment create this inflammatory cascade that the adrenal glands are responding to and contributing to. And so the way we can find out the level of inflammation is how high is the sodium in the interstitial fluid, because the sodium is a reflection of what the kidneys are having to do in response to aldosterone, which is a pro-inflammatory hormone that the adrenal glands make. So that drives the sodium up. It doesn't have anything to do with salt. When the sodium goes up, it pushes magnesium out of the cells, out of that interstitial fluid, and with it goes calcium. So the calcium and magnesium drop. The other thing that happens is, in the body trying to balance itself, it has to select out what's priority. And more inflammation is not good. So how does the body keep the sodium from going higher? It holds down manganese. So manganese is not picked up. It's being held at a minimum, because if there was more manganese, the sodium could go higher. So there'd be more inflammation. But unfortunately, manganese is also very, very important for supporting the structure of the ligaments, the tendons, the joint capsule, and the cartilage. So now we have 3 very key minerals to prevent cruciate tears, which leads you to the TPLO, that are not there in the majority of the animals. So when you combine deficiency of calcium, magnesium, and manganese, when you add to that an inflammation state, which is going on for some time, and then the addition of the hormones, all of those are reasons that we see so many cruciate tears. When I graduated from vet school, which was 1980, for years, I mean, this went on until probably the mid-90s. We might do 5 surgeries a year. Of course, they didn't have the TPLO then. We did that extra capsular. And there was a couple others that came along. But yeah, maybe 5 a year. And then it was like 10 a year. And then it was like you'd see clinics that started after 95, just like 5 in a week. And it's like now one of the most common surgeries. And it's because of all of that, because of the food, because of the inflammation, because of all the chemicals in the environment. And it really jumped up when we started with all the topical flea and tick products and that. And I'm not saying to have fleas and ticks is good, but I'm just saying that there are other sacrifices that come about. It's kind of like Temple Grandin's book, where her first book, which talks about the sacrifices that are made to the animal species. And in her book, she was talking about roosters, how with the Leghorn chickens, the people wanted more breast meat, the more white meat. And so when they started breeding for more white meat, the males of that, the Leghorns and those chickens, they became what they call rapist roosters. Their personality, they became very vicious and then were just mean. And this was an exchange that happened in breeding for this change in the females. You also got this problem with the males. And so anything that we do, while there could appear to be a good side, as in reducing the flea and tick infestation, there's also a bad side, how it affects the nervous system, how it drains out other key minerals, and all those kinds of things. So, yep, I've seen evidence of that. All righty. Okay, good. So let's see here. Let's see if we got another question. Rachel says her 15-year-old, 93-pound female pit bull has osteoarthritis. Okay, the CBD dog health, I like that one, and occasionally Galliprant. Okay, she no longer tolerates 45-minute ride to the holistic vet for chiropractic and acupuncture and cold laser. Any suggestions? So you're looking at having to do more things at home. First question is 93 pounds for her, like, is that a good weight or is she overweight? And it may be that the overweight part is adding to the osteoarthritis, and certainly can make it difficult for getting in and out of the car. Like when they start to feel insecure and it's difficult to climb in, like you get them in the car and then you get there, and then by the time you've unloaded them, reloaded them, unloaded them at home, some of your benefits from what you just did, you've lost because of all that, especially if they're nervous. So it may be that doing some weight changing. The other thing too is maybe where you live, I'm guessing that you've probably tried, but there are chiropractic vets and rehab and acupuncturists that actually do mobile practices. I don't know if that's feasible where they could come to your place. The other would be you purchasing some things to do at home. So depending on how much money you have available, would be laser at home. So you can have the low-level laser pads, the back pads, the leg, wherever you need to put it. So that would be something that you could purchase to have at home and do that. The alpha stem microcurrent therapy, you can treat acupuncture points in 20 to 30 seconds, and also has the ear clip, so that helps pain everywhere in the body. You could use a beamer pad. That helps a lot. Again, depending on what finances you have to invest in that. And then you're going to be looking at doing some other things topically. So just gentle range of motion, like Laurie was talking about. Like some of these you can't abduct the leg extensively. They're very sensitive. So you have to just do gentle, very little things. My Tai Chi Wawa program can be helpful. Another thing too, I recommend when you're trying to improve posture, you're trying to do exercises on older ones that are already weak, is to get a ball. So an air inflated ball, the air in the ball, and you kind of let some of the air out, so it's not like round and they're just falling off of it. So you let them have a little dip. But that is as close to being in the underwater treadmill as anything. And so have a ball that you can get under the tummy that allows them to actually reduce the gravitational forces against their joints so they can stand up for a little while longer, which then will start to help improve the strength of their joints. And then when those joints are stronger, then the motion is better and the fluid can move out and move in, which also could be another thing, thinking about doing some lymphatic drainage, things like that to help move fluid through the body. But it's going to be a lot of gentle hands-on, and then maybe adding in some other things. You say occasionally Galliprant, maybe she needs the Galliprant more often, or you want to look at doing the Boswellia, the MSM, the Cordalis, some of the other things you've learned on Dr. Blanco's program with the homeopathic preparations, things like that. you're going to have to move into some of those because, yeah, a 45-minute trip is not fun. And then to not have it be able to last for you. Alrighty, very good. Thank you for that question. 3 weeks ago, a 7-year-old was diagnosed with bone cancer. Nasty thing, a large bump. Oh, under her eye. Oh, malignant. So I'm guessing that it's in the bone that's underneath the eye. And that's a difficult area to get to, but there are things that you can do there. So in the post program, the post summit course, there's a whole presentation that I did, and it's a lengthy one about cancer and all the different things that you can utilize to help with cancer in everything from reducing metastases to making it die quicker to preventing it from starting to begin with. There's just a lot in that program. So that would be my recommendation for you, would be to sign up for the post summit course and get that presentation on cancer. Ozone therapy may be something, because of the area where it's going to be difficult to get at. Those tend to grow pretty fast there, and then it messes with the breathing, and then you end up with the bleeding from the nasal cavity and all that. So I would start ozone therapy would be something that you could do, and then getting on the program to see all the other benefits. Many of the pain things are going to be similar to what we've talked about, but there's a lot of other things that you can do to help reduce that cancer. The ivermectin, the fenbendazole, there's all kinds of things out there. But I would look at ozone for that area because it's very oxygenated anyway. So I think that would be like super key if there's somebody in your area where you can get the ozone done. I'm sorry to hear about that. That's a bummer. Alrighty, you got another question? All right, so the question is, what hair test analysis do you recommend? All righty. So the laboratory that I use is out of Arizona, and it is the key. It's the #1 company that started. It's like the grandfather of all the companies that are out there now. And all the testing systems, there's licensing requirements that they have to have. So you can order up a hair test analysis through me if you want to do it that way. You can't just send the hair into the laboratory. It has to go through a professional. But I've also created with a team what's called checkpup.com. So you can go to checkpup and everything there. That way you buy the kit, and then that you get in the mail scale and all the directions, and you just clip the fur and you mail it to them, and they use my laboratory, and everything in this computer program is what I do. It is like my brain that has been put into all these algorithms to create the results that you get that explain what's going on in the body. And it also has a survey that you contribute, like what you're seeing at home. So we're including what the lifestyle is and what's happening and behavior and all that with what is coming up in the report. And then we give you suggestions on what you can do to subsidize the program. So there's a nutrient balancing program, and whatever's low or high, and it gives you an overall of what to do. And then that's retested like every 4 months. You want to monitor the changes. You also get heavy metals. It'll tell you like what levels they are. So you either want to go to checkpup.com, or I do have some practitioners that I've been working with over the past 10 years or more. So depending on where you live, I could also give you a practitioner that's trained, that uses analytical research labs and other veterinarians then that you could go to too, aside from myself. But the main thing is that the reason I use this lab is that the hair samples are not washed. If they're washed right before the lab is done, many of the minerals that aren't heavily bound will be rinsed out as well. So we don't want to do that. So we want to take the hair as it comes in. So normally it takes about 4 hours after a bath for that hair sample from the interstitial fluid to re-equilibrate itself. So you don't want to bathe within 4 hours of doing a sample. So those are your options there that I'm real picky about stuff. I'm very specific. I've delved into this and like learned it to the nth degree. I have 2 books that I've written on how to interpret hair analysis and that I use in teaching others. And so I cringe when I see some other companies' reports that like a new client comes on and says, "Oh, I had this done, and here's what," and I look at that and I go, I look at it, it's like they don't understand all of these ratios. They don't understand the mineral exchanges. Like, this person has been given the wrong information because whoever's interpreting it doesn't really understand it and hasn't taken the time. So it's another one of those things, kind of like the product. You got to have the right ingredients in order to get the right results. Very good. Thanks for asking. So we got any more questions? All right. Do you recommend ozone oil for teeth pain? Yeah. No, I hadn't mentioned that. I hadn't really talked about ozone at all. Thanks, Carol. She says she's behind in the classes. That's okay. That happens. But no, we didn't really talk about ozone in any of the prior presentations. I think, I can't remember now. I did mine so long ago. I may have had a little bit of ozone in one, but the post course, I go into the ozone in more detail. But yes, ozone can be used in the oil like that for in the mouth for teeth pain. Yeah, you're good. All's good. Thanks, Carol. Do you have another question? Okay. The other ways that ozone, while we're waiting for any other questions to come in, ozone can be used many ways. So you can mix it with oil and use it like that in the mouth. It has a relatively short, once it's exposed to air and that out of it, when a bottle it's been open, there's a short timeline. So some people that are doing things like that, they have their own system at home and then they can recreate it and then keep it fresh. You can also do it rectally. It can be infused, like the blood samples taken out and then it's added to the blood and then, reintroduced to the body. So there's a lot of different ways that the ozone can be delivered, and it does have a lot of different benefits. I've done some of the ozone chambers before. I'm just a little claustrophobic, and then they get super hot, and then I was having some problems with that. But at any rate, I think it's a cool thing, and definitely has a lot of avenues and ways to help with pain, and especially with cancer pain and cancer. So there's that one. Let's see here. Oh, I can go back to what we're looking at on some of these other topics, if there's anything else for me to add. Yeah, no, not seeing anything there on my list. I guess I can't see here. We've got a few minutes yet. No new questions in. So I guess I can go through some different pain scenarios that I've seen. If we talk about cats, one of the weird things I think is that the cats that get that hyperesthesia will be a different topic that we didn't talk about. And we're talking about arthritis in the joints and deeper pain. But that whole skin problem, the hyperesthesia, when they have food sensitivities, for cats, that's very, very annoying and in a way painful because those nerve endings are in a spasm type of a mode. So it would be comparable to some degree of a person having shingles, where those nerve endings are very, very irritated. And the cats, they can't hardly stand to be touched. Cats are very particular and they groom themselves all the time. They don't like to be greasy. They don't want to be matted up. When they become obese and they can't turn around and groom themselves, and then their bums get dirty, and then right there in front of their tail, it tends to get dandruffy. And you go to pet them there a little bit, and they get their mouths going because it feels so good because they can't get back there with their rough tongue and do anything. So any type of a skin condition like that to a cat, especially the ones that are related to the food sensitivities where their skin gets crawling, or anything even allergic wise, or anything along the spine like subluxations that can cause a dermatomal response, and it causes the cats to gyrate in that area. I always call it get the heebie-jeebies, where you just kind of pet them and then the skin goes like that. it's even more of an issue for cats than the dogs, just because they hate their skin and all that being untidy and uncomfortable. So that would be another scenario of a situation that we would have pain in cats and irritation and inflammation, and want to address those in some of the ways that we've been looking at during this pain relief summit, is adding in other things that may make a difference. And I suspect in that scenario with the cats, the PEA would be a very good thing to try, in addition to, first you got to do the foods. And sometimes I can think of this one white cat that came to me, and she was owned by a veterinarian, and he had done all the different things that he normally would do as a big old white fluffy cat, and had that pre-oral, so the balding and all the scabs and crusties here and all over the ears and the body, and it licked itself bald and had all these red, scabby, crusty sores, and oh, the poor thing. And he tried this formula and this food, and on the prednisone and different things. What we did first was, food isolation. Totally started the cat. I found one thing that we could use that didn't make the cat break out, and that was tuna. And that's where we started, because we had to do elimination for this cat. So we started that while we were waiting for the hair mineral analysis test to come back and start figuring out what else is going on. And this, again, was back probably 2008 or 2007. So it's been a while ago, before some of the newer things that we know now that we can do were available. But that's where we started with the cat, was just eating tuna. And in just doing that one thing for starters, 85% of the cat's problem went away. And then we started introducing in other food factors and getting the gut worked through, and just, working through the layers. But that was a situation where, instead of doing multiple things, because the cat had so many problems, was just the one, only eat one. And the cat was happy to eat it, and gave us some reprieve, gave the cat some relief, let the skin start to heal, and then we could work into other foods. Now, we always worry about the tuna with the mercury, but in that situation, you got to balance out what's the worst of the evils. And so if you ask the cat, are you going to worry about some mercury right now, or is it the itching? It definitely was the itching that cat would have voted or stop my itching. So that's what we did. So at any rate, another area that you may not think about as a painful thing, but to a kitty cat it is. All right, so we got a couple more questions. Let's see what we got here in the box. All right, Debbie says she's worked with several vets on the source of the dog's skin issues and used Cytopoint as a last resort to calm the discomfort. Well, do I know of any harmful side effects? You can you can Google that up and see the side effects of Cytopoint. Yes, there are harmful ones. And it certainly is something that I really try to get the dogs off of. Sometimes you can't totally, but I would say all the times we've been able to lengthen the interval between the injections, even on the ones that we couldn't get them totally off of it. The thing that I have found of products in the past year is a company that's called Research Nutritionals, and they're out of California. And they have a product called Cytoquel, which is kind of like where Cytopoint comes from, but this is a supplemental product that helps to quiet the cytokines. Then they also have one called Histoquel, which is the histamine. And so in some dogs, they need some of each of them, and some like one's in the morning and one's in the evening. And other ones, it's just like, just treat for the Cytoquel, just treat the Histoquel. And those two products has helped me a lot with getting these dogs off of the Apoquel and the Cytopoint. It's a very, very frustrating situation. Again, I go back to doing the hair analysis because we want to know, are there heavy metals? Because a lot of times if there's a high level of aluminum in that body, or if there's high copper, because copper is needed by the adrenal glands to make the cortisol. Cholesterol and copper are needed to create cortisol. And so when that individual is in a high stress mode or a lot of inflammatory things going on, the adrenal glands are always being signaled, the 911 button. It's getting pushed all the time. And so it tells the body, hey, stockpile copper. Well, unfortunately, high levels of copper, in addition to backing up into the liver, but on the nerves, it causes more agitation. A high level of copper that's being stored in the body, and in this, it's floating around in the interstitial fluid, makes those nerve endings tingly. It causes agitation. It causes mood disorders. And so it can be a part of that irritation of the nerve endings that cause the itching. So you may be treating for what appears to be allergies, but maybe the really underlying thing, which we know allergies is on the surface, underneath there is immune something, but it could be that it's high levels of aluminum or it's a high copper in that individual. And there's a lot of things that can occur in between those two that can make it look like it's allergies or setting the body up for allergies when you handle this other problem and the allergies go away and they become less seasonal. So they may still happen a little bit, but they're not as bad when they happen, that kind of thing. There's some homeopathics I use for molds, grasses, pollens, weeds, things like that too, while we're working on getting that whole inflammatory cascade down. That is very irritating, and inflammation in the body that goes on for a long time will lead to other issues down the road. So yeah, just Google it up and you can see all the side effects. But there are things that you can do to help back down off of that over time. Thank you for that question. All righty, and we have another one. Okay. All right, so the question is hypersensitivity and hyperreflectivity on the back paws for dogs. Any suggestions of medical conditions related to this? So I'm not exactly sure what it is that it's only on the rear feet. And so you're saying that when the dog walks, they pick the feet up, their like motion is accentuated, that would be hyperreflexivity, like that, like a Gestapo kind of a march in the rear. Is that happening? Hypersensitivity would be you barely touch it and they don't want you to mess with it. So as opposed to anything that is paresis, paralysis. So, and it's only in the rear paws, which is kind of curious. So that makes me think nerves something in the lumbar area of the back that potentially is going to the rear legs. That would be one thing. Hypersensitivity, hyperreflectivity. Again, I'd be looking at maybe there's high levels of copper and it's setting up that area, again, back to maybe subluxations in the lumbar and it's creating something there. Hypersensitivity, they don't want you to touch them. Aggravated by anything that's going there. Yeah, you got to be looking at nerves. Has to be something with the nervous system in that loop. So there's a loop that just connects the nerves, each rear leg. So you have the nerves coming from the brain down the back, and they branch out and divide. And then you have a nerve loop that just goes through both front legs and then does the same thing, just going rear leg to rear leg. And then you have another set of pathways that goes to diagonal. So it like would come up from one rear leg, cross over into the opposite front, and then does the other side as well. So you have all of those happening. So if it's only in the rear, then I'd be thinking there might be something with that loop right there that's also hypersensitized. So whether or not it's a virus causing the hypersensitivity, something with the nerves obviously going on, something like that, that's caused that to get set off. And then you're back to trying to figure out what's the real why. I don't know of a name of a medical condition otherwise. I mean, like you can drum up names for everything, but you still have to get to the bottom reason, the real why, which is well before the condition ever got there. So I don't have to, it's like, I don't necessarily feel like we have to spend more money on getting a diagnosis. We can figure out what's causing it and you can treat it. You can spend your money on treatments which benefit the animal rather than more diagnostics. Now, in some situations, you do have to get to the diagnostic to know what are you going to do for treatments. But other times, sometimes just to have a bigger answer or another answer of a name of something, if you're going to treat it the same anyway, spend the money on treatments, unless money doesn't matter. Okay, good. So I think that brings us to the end of our program for today. That was really good. It's always fun. I like sharing things and I appreciate your input. So just to wrap up, we want to thank our sponsors. We got Yum Wolf, we got Turmeric Life, We have Poly Pets. We appreciate them immensely for their contributions. And then be ready to log on tomorrow because it's going to be the last day of our Pet Pain Relief Summit. You're going to get to listen to Dr. Katie Woodley, Julianne Thorne, Dr. Barbara Royal, and Dr. Janet Gordon-Palm. We've got some programs and some interviews, and it'll just be another fun day. And then I'll see you here tomorrow evening, same time, same place. All right. Thanks for being a part of our Pet Pain Relief Summit. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Happy trails.